West Beirut, as the Palestinian Liberation Organization struggles for survival. Israel and the PLO have been fighting for more than a month. The stakes are high. The prize, control of Lebanon. Lebanon's had plenty of self-inflicted wounds from its own civil war. But this battle with the Israelis is on a different scale. Thousands have already died, and hundreds of thousands have become homeless. In war, there are always victims on all sides. But here, the real victims have been the civilians. For years, they've been silent witnesses to Lebanon's agony. But on June 6th, that agony entered a new phase when the Israelis staged their invasion. Operation Peace for Galilee was supposed to be aimed at clearing out the Palestinians from southern Lebanon. From the very beginning, it was fiercely destructive. In some areas, fighting was house to house. But as Israel poured in men and equipment, the result was never in doubt. The Israelis' real aim soon became clear. They swept northwards, and PLO strongholds fell one after another. Towns on the road to Beirut were razed to the ground to make way for the invading army. Sidon fared little better than Tyre and was almost obliterated by Israeli bombardments from land, sea, and air. Nothing, it seemed, could stop Israel's advance on Beirut. As Israeli soldiers closed in, 5,000 heavily armed PLO men retrenched themselves in the Lebanese capital. The Palestinians were in West Beirut, the area they've dominated for several years. The Israelis just kept on coming, right into East Beirut alongside the Lebanese Christians who are their allies of a kind. Beirut had been cut in two long before the Israelis arrived. This is the Museum Road checkpoint, the last one to stay open between East and West. Now it's closed. As the noose tightened around West Beirut, the United States tried to act as mediator. The PLO played for time. Israel insisted that there could be only one solution. The PLO would have to leave Lebanon. Israeli Defense Minister Ariel Sharon.
We came here to fight and destroy the terrorist organizations that have been killing and murdering our people for years and years. That is our goal here. Once we'll finish it, we'll move immediately back. We don't have any interest whatsoever to stay here, not our country. We don't need even 1 square inch of this country.
Negotiations are going on now, and
we prefer that the terrorists will leave as a result of negotiation. It's not that we cannot do it militarily, but again, not like the description that one can see in your country. Israel tried for a very long time to solve this problem by peaceful means. And even now, though we are here with all our military strengths and we can solve this problem, we prefer that the terrorists will leave Beirut as a result of the negotiation which takes part between the Lebanese government and the terrorist organizations.
But so far, the negotiations have been fruitless. In the meantime, the Israeli forces are trying to starve the PLO into submission. Crossing from one enclave to another can be a hazardous undertaking. The Israelis and their Christian Maronite allies are determined to remain in control. Their purpose is to regulate all traffic in and out of besieged West Beirut. To them, the flow of people and goods must be carefully scrutinized to prevent any Palestinians leaving the city. For some, life carries on as normal. Well, almost. But the scars of war are everywhere, and they will remain with Beirut for years to come. Meanwhile, the inhabitants go about their daily business as best they can. Fear is not limited to the surrounded western part of the city. These are East Beirut civilians who have sought refuge with the Red Cross. For some of the city's inhabitants, supplies are impossible to obtain. They rely on voluntary organizations to provide them with food. Supplies of fresh foods are shared out as fairly as possible, but food isn't the only problem. Water supplies are often scarce, and at the height of summer, water is more important than food. The Israelis turned off water supplies for several days, but under pressure from international public opinion, they were forced to turn them on again. Power cuts have also caused confusion. Again, electricity was turned off by the Israelis, and the people of Beirut have had to learn how to cope with the situation. Every home that can afford one has bought a generator. After so many years of upheaval, the Lebanese have become very good at turning a crisis into an advantage. Some are certainly showing it now. Demand for emergency goods is so high that traders have set up on the pavement. Despite the chaos, they're resourceful enough to provide the most unlikely and up-to-the-minute emergency equipment. For some, the situation is near catastrophic. Others still manage to get by somehow. Some shelves are still well stocked with produce like butter, but there is an increasing shortage of fresh goods. Meat is becoming scarcer by the day, and so expensive that only very few can afford it. Ketchup and mustard is of little use unless accompanying more substantial forms of nourishment. This supermarket is in Ras Beirut, a rich suburb of West Beirut. For those who can afford it, it's stocking up time. Hoarding food is a necessity because nobody knows how long it will be before they can stock up again. Loading up their cars, they will return to houses that are still relatively safe in East Beirut. Around them, though, normal life patterns have completely broken down. Rubbish is gathering in the streets, uncollected. This lack of basic hygiene is increasing the risk of disease and infection. Already there is evidence that in the worst-hit city areas, polio and cholera are spreading and might turn into an epidemic. It's in the poorer areas and the refugee camps that the situation is worst. All are affected, the old as well as the young. But despite everything, some still have enough spirit to show a gesture of defiance. This is the Burj Barajna refugee camp. Life here goes on, despite the continuous shelling that takes place each time a ceasefire is broken. For the people staying here, life is a daily challenge with death. And it is the children who suffer most because they cannot understand. What makes the situation difficult to untangle are the divisions within Lebanese society. Even before the Palestinian problem exploded amongst them, the Lebanese people were divided, not just along political lines, but also along religious ones. Muslims were in the majority, but in power and wealth, they came a poor second to the Maronite Christians. The leader of Lebanon's Muslims is the Grand Mufti, Sheikh Khaled Hassan. We asked him how he felt now about the Palestinians, most of whom are also Muslims.
أحب أن أؤكد بأن الموقف الإسلامي ما زال هو.
He told us the Muslim position is still the same, that he sees the need for an international presence to separate the PLO from the aggressive forces. He believes the problem has been caused not by the PLO, but by what he calls the other side. According to him, Lebanon consists of people from all nations and all races. So why shouldn't the Palestinians find refuge in Lebanon?
ماذا الذي ستقوم به القوات الدولية إذا دخلت؟ ما هي مهمتها؟
The Muslim community itself is divided, and support for the Palestinians can vary from one group to another. All the factions involved must look to their own survival. These are the offices of the leader of the Druze community, another Muslim sect in the maze of Lebanese factions. The Druze have solidly supported the PLO. But whatever happens to the Palestinians, the Druze are part of Lebanon. They will not be moving out. So PLO forces have been asked to leave Druze villages so that the Druze won't be caught up in the Israeli onslaught. This wasn't the only attack on the Druze. It's not known who's responsible, but it certainly looks as if someone is trying to stir up the same inter-religious rivalries that were responsible for Lebanon's civil war. On the other side of the religious divide, the Christian community, the Maronites. Although they are not a majority of the population, they have dominated Lebanese politics since independence. And over the last 6 years, they've been Israel's closest ally inside Lebanon. Back in 1976, the Syrians helped the Maronites in their fight against the Palestinians and leftist Muslims. In 1978, the Syrians turned against them, and so the Maronites turned to Israel for assistance. Today, Maronites and Israelis work together against the PLO. Bashir Gemayel is the Christian Maronite leader and a strong contender for a prominent role in future Lebanese politics.
No, we are starting to be understood and to be believed that we have never been looking for the partition of the country. We have never been looking to form a Christian state. All what we have been accused of for 8 years have been lies and misunderstanding and misconceptions from the Syrians and from the Palestinians, who have tried to create a bad image of what is really Lebanon, a bad image of this strong nucleus, who are the Lebanese forces and the Lebanese front, led by President Camille Chamoun and by Sheikh Pierre, which you have met this afternoon. Now we are starting to be understood that all what we are looking for is a strong central government, a strong central army for a strong Lebanon, free Lebanon, friendly to the West, friendly to the Occident, to the free world, a Lebanon who will never be another Afghanistan or another Poland.
Gemayel's passionate and controversial words leave little hope for peace in Lebanon, for the near future at least. This was one American, though, who felt he could help to bring peace in his own way.
What are your intentions?
Yes, I've been carrying the cross around the world for 13 years. And last week I was in Sweden carrying the cross, and I read in the paper the tragedies happening in this place. It broke my heart. And we came with a cross to pray for the peace. And to the God of Abraham says, let there be peace. And the prayer of my son and I is that there will be no more killing. There's been enough killing, enough sadness, enough tragedy, enough death. Let there be peace. All the people have suffered. The killing must stop. And Jesus is the answer. The world must see that the cross is the place of reconciliation and the place of peace.
A voice in the wilderness, perhaps. But the Lebanese tragedy brought several unexpected visitors to Beirut. A small group of Israeli journalists, led by left-wing politician Yuri Avneri, even managed to get into the beleaguered western sector to be shown some of the weapons used by the Israeli army. Cluster and phosphorus bombs, banned under United Nations and international agreements, wreak havoc among the civilian population.
This is one container. This is one container of the cluster bombs. This is artillery shell. This was shell from the sea, not in the around on the ground. So if somebody hits them, or so they cut his leg, his feet, his belly, or he's killed. You know?
Within the western sector, the damage to buildings is severe. One reason why civilian casualties have been so high is that Palestinian positions are located in civilian areas. Casualty figures will be incomplete for quite a while yet. In fact, the full extent of the tragedy may never be known for certain. In East Beirut, life continues to be amazingly normal for some. Well-to-do Lebanese continue to wine and dine as though nothing were happening. The only difference is that now they sit at table with Israeli soldiers. Israeli officials have become almost a common sight in these restaurants. They come here confident of receiving a warm welcome. Israeli Deputy Finance Minister Chaim Kaufman explains why.
I really do feel that the people are wishing that the Israelis will help them to establish here a state. Of course, we are limited, and we can't do everything that we wish to do for them. But it seems to me that a big change will be here in the future, and it might be that peace will reach the Middle East through Beirut.
Back in Israel, in the Knesset as in the streets, the overall mood is also confident. From the start, a majority of Israelis supported Operation Peace for Galilee. The pro-invasion feeling is running high, and it's being increased by the sense of imminent victory. A recent opinion poll concluded that should elections be held now, Menachem Begin's Likud party would win by a landslide. The pro-war lobby hasn't got everything its own way. For the first time in Israel, anti-war demonstrations have taken place during a military conflict. Severe doubts about Israel's motives for the operation have become apparent both at home and abroad. But more than that, it is Israel's methods during the conflict that have come in for severe criticism. Allegations of disregard for human needs have been made against the Israelis. They have been accused of refusing to let through medical and relief supplies bound for civilian areas. The Israelis argue that these supplies could fall into PLO hands and not reach their proper destination. Their critics say they've imposed unnecessary suffering upon thousands of innocent civilians. The Israelis argue that in any war, there are bound to be victims. The ancient city of Tyre is slowly recovering from the battering it took during the Israeli advance in June. The Israelis have assured the Lebanese population in the south that the war for them is over. It was only the presence of Palestinian guerrillas in their midst that placed their homes and lives in danger. There had been about 3,000 guerrillas in the southern coastal cities. In the jargon of military spokesmen, Those who didn't flee have been mopped up, killed or made prisoner as the Israelis strengthened their grip. Out in the Mediterranean, ships of the United States 6th Fleet are within short sailing distance of Beirut. Their intention is not warlike. The U.S. has offered its fleet to evacuate PLO guerrillas if they agree to leave. But hopes of a negotiated settlement were shattered time and time again as a succession of ceasefires broke down. Since the siege began, the city has come to accept sporadic shelling as a fact of daily life. But in one 18-hour period on July 12th, both sides were involved in a continuous bombardment, firing a shell or rocket every 2 seconds. Reporters say not a single building in West Beirut remains undamaged, including foreign embassies and hospitals. One of the biggest hospitals in West Beirut is the Gaza Hospital. It's administered by the Red Crescent Society, and the staff have a constant struggle to tend the flood of casualties. Besides the danger of being in the front line of the fighting, there's a chronic shortage of medical supplies. One man urgently needed a blood transfusion of 3 pints. There were only 2 pints available. Doctors had to dilute the blood 2 parts to 1 with water. Beirut, especially West Beirut, is a city in agony, slowly being destroyed. Every casualty, every building destroyed is designed to put more pressure on the PLO to surrender. Some guerrilla leaders said they would rather turn the city into another Stalingrad and fight on amid the ruins to the bitter end, rather than capitulate. The PLO leader, Yasser Arafat, refused to quit West Beirut, but he is too much of a realist to believe that the battle can be won here. We asked Mr. Arafat if he is ready to lay down his arms. His reply, he longs to be a civilian again, but only when there's a Palestinian state to go to.
When will I will arrive to Jerusalem, I would like to work as an engineer. It is my professional. And I promise my people, as soon as I arrive to Jerusalem with them, where we will establish our states and to live as other people are living there, I will return back to work as a civilian.
Mr. Arafat, is there a message you want to deliver to the world from the besieged Beirut?
Yes. We're the international conscience. We are here, the Lebanese people, the Christian people, facing for 1 month now. Massacres, genocides, invasion, aggression, attack, occupation. Where is the international conscience?
A tired appeal to the outside world from an obviously tired man. Yet he refuses to tell the guerrillas to lay down their arms. To do so would mean the end of the PLO's military presence in Lebanon, just what Israel wants. The fighting men would be dispersed around the Arab world, perhaps to Syria, Algeria, Egypt, or South Yemen. Surrender or outright defeat would also mean the end of Arafat's long reign as head of the PLO. It's possible that even a dispersed and weakened PLO would then turn away from Arafat's comparatively moderate line, perhaps towards the hardline approach of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, led by Marxist radical George Habash. Would his group fight on even if other PLO groups pulled out?
We will discuss it when we face such a situation. We are not facing such a situation at the present moment.
If PLO had to leave Lebanon, where do you think they should go to?
I said that it is not within our plan to leave Lebanon. Why should we leave? We have actually to extend our presence, military presence in Syria, in Jordan, in Egypt. Why do you want us to leave Lebanon?
A PLO pullout would prevent more destruction. When the fighting reaches its fiercest, Beirut looks like hell on earth. The PLO fights on against superior forces, challenging the Israelis to destroy a city to gain a military victory. What the Israelis called Operation Peace for Galilee has become a battle in the capital of another country. There is intransigence on both sides, and no outside force, from the emasculated Lebanese government to the superpowers, seems able to end the fighting or to prevent the slow destruction of Beirut.